you are, I will always be with you. Doesn't matter what you do, girl, ooh, girl, with you. No matter what you do, I will always be around.
Badfinger were a rock band from Swansea in Wales. They were formed in 1961 under the name The Ivies, but their label instigated a name change in the late 60s. They seemed from then on to have no fixed personnel, not necessarily a fixed existence after about 1975. They seemed to be on and off. And at times no fixed name. There were various different versions of the name wandering around as well. So it was all quite a mess, really. They didn't produce very many albums. So this was the second album that was released under the name Badfinger. They kind of changed names during the previous album between recording it and releasing it. And there's quite a variety of stuff on here. There's some rock and roll, there's some blues rock, there's some ballads, some slow songs. There's a weird folky thing about spoons, which is called Blodwyn. And to some extent, they've got no fixed sound. They don't have guitar sounds, for example, that they use all the time. It's very varied. So at times it sounds a bit like Alan Price, who was in the Animals. It sounds a bit like the Moody Blues. It sounds a bit like Procol Harum. And there are albums by those bands that follow this kind of pattern of actually being quite varied. But if there's anybody it sounds very like, it's the Beatles, and the Beatles were also quite varied. There's reasons to expect it to sound like the Beatles. So the record label they were signed to was Apple, which was owned by the Beatles. It was recorded at Abbey Road, and they were actively encouraged to be like the Beatles in many ways. There's some interesting stuff on here. As I said, the song Blodwyn doesn't sound very Beatles and is curious. There's a song called Without You, which when you hear it, you probably would know it because it was a huge hit for Harry Nilsson. In fact, this song has been their biggest cash bringer-inner over the years rather than their own recordings, because there's been many, many covers of this and they get lots and lots of royalties. There's 3 different singers. As I said before, there's many different styles and sounds. And to an extent, that means I think it feels like they're lacking identity. And I had an interesting thought at this point, which is that actually early in your career as a band, you probably don't want to be this varied because you need to be establishing your identity. And I suspect that one of the reasons that Badfinger aren't better known is because they didn't establish a strong identity, or their identity was established too much as a kind of Beatles sound alike. But there is some decent songwriting in here, and it's a good album. I quite enjoyed it.
Well, I can't forget this evening and your face when you were leaving, but I guess that's just the way the story goes. You always smile, but in your eyes your sorrow shows. Yes, it shows.